All right, guys, welcome back. July 25th, my first chase episode. And I don't want anyone to think that I haven't been working. I've been having a lot of projects going on, a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. It's always fun this time of the year to have the interns, showing them the ropes, showing them the properties, getting acclimated to the process. I got Blake and Aiden with me today. We're actually down here putting in the first fall plots on the homestead. If you haven't been following along with the off-season shows, spoiler alert, I sold Area 52. We're down here on the homestead now. This is the new farm, 146 acres, taking a step forward, a little bit larger than what Area 52 was. This is a special one. Anytime it's my farm and being able to get food on the property, that's always fun because you're able to see the fruits of those labor, later on in the season. So looking forward to it. This is a unique plot because we're gonna split this one. So I think that this could be a really good early season set. So I'm gonna do one plot ASAP down here in the bottom. A portion of it, the northern half, is gonna have rut greens. So I feel like I'm set up to have a lot of food, specifically food for late season too. The one plot ASAP is gonna be better early on in the season. You're gonna have a lot of those cereal grains, lush and green. So I'm gonna play on that where I have a really cool stand location and an island of trees right here. If you're anywhere in the Midwest right now, you know too that it's been hot, humid, wet conditions. Even earlier today, we had the plan, we were gonna come down here. We were gonna make one more pass with glyphosate and spray this off, but based on the conditions and the amount of rain that we got, we're not gonna be able to do that today. So go from there, but this is a fun one. Appreciate having you guys down here at the homestead. Here we go. If I could just get a sweat going, I'd be all right. Wow. You'll notice right away, this is just a completely different look. So you still have like those brassicas and some turnips in there, but you see a lot larger seeds. So these are all cereal grains. So you have oats, rye, winter wheat, much larger, and a lot of times harder to broadcast because you have such a difference in seed size. So you gotta walk fast and crank hard. One plot down and I'm sweating pretty good. I know that when some people watch that, you saw that I did this in two separate directions, right? So I started and I went east and west, worked my way down the hill. And that was actually a tip that I learned from my buddy Jared a few years ago that, essentially I set my setting on the lowest seed possible, or the lowest setting possible, I should say, where seed is just starting to come out. And I want to work my way through the entire plot because I didn't bring a scale with me. If I could have a scale here and I could tell you exactly how much seed I need, but this plot itself is right at 1 acre. So I can guesstimate pretty close to what it should be for what these seed rates are, because both these bags that I'm dealing with are half-acre bags. So I like to get all the way through the plot, know that I have enough seed, and then I'll bump up my seed rate just a little bit and go the opposite direction. And I haven't looked at it yet, but I did turn on my Onyx tracker before I did that. So this solo seeder sends it out there pretty good, so that's not usually an issue. But if I look back at that track and I got good coverage, I know that this is gonna be, well covered, which I feel pretty confident. I can see my tracks when I was out there walking. So that was pretty easy to be able to see that today. But this is a big thing, that this is foxtail. It's all coming up, and there's some water grass in there too. And this is an example of why I want to hit this one more time. There actually is some clover, that off-season blend that's coming back already. But if I can hit this one more time, that's just gonna allow those bulbs or whatever brassicas, cereal grains to be more successful if I can just get a clean slate from the very beginning. This is actually one of the first trees when I was walking the farm originally, the first time I came out here, where to me I identified this as a potential stand location right away. I think even if there wasn't a food source here, this would be a really good spot to hunt. And I think that you could potentially play with your mowings for your access trails and make this a really good spot. But the idea of having food off to the north, with essentially any northerly wind, a northeast wind really is going to be perfect for this stand location, where especially during early season, I feel like you're going to be able to see a lot of deer, you're going to be able to see a lot of the farm, and just be able to have the observation side of it. But I like the entry exit of this stand specifically. And what I mean by that is that essentially we can come in right on the ag field, and we're coming in from an entry standpoint, even come on the edge of the plot, go right up into the shingle oak that's located right here. But then what I'm gonna do is that I'm actually gonna mow another trail out the back door essentially. So even if there's deer out in the plot in front of us, we can essentially go right out the back door at the end of the night. And I think that that's gonna allow us to have cleaner in and out on this farm, because I know that one thing that I'm gonna change going into 2026 season is that I definitely need to evaluate access lanes on this property, specifically in the row crop area. We're gonna make the transition over the next plot. This is the biggest one. That was the most walking. I'm glad this one's done and over with. So I'm gonna grab a drink of water, and it's all downhill from here.
We didn't bring enough water.
I don't know what the heck it is, but we ran something over. It's pretty obvious what that is. Flux capacitor. I have no idea what that is. We're on to the second plot. I've never really had a name for this spot yet. I've been kind of referring to it as like the walnut plot. There's a really nice grove of old growth walnuts that are right here. This is a really unique example. When I talk about these new plots, one of the things that needs to be said is that a lot of these acres are in CRP, right? So I'm incorporating food into my CRP contract. So when I'm selecting these plots, I wanted to have locations where if I'm gonna put food there, I might as well have tree stand locations too. So one of the themes you're gonna notice when we stop at every single one of these plots tonight is that, there's gonna be a tree or trees that we've identified so that we can hunt them, because these are plots that I'm incorporating into my CRP contract because they're still in the program itself. Depending on what program you're in, mine allows up to 10% of the total acreage to go into food. And that's something that I'm gonna lean on. And as somebody that's a predominant archery hunter at this point in my life, none of these plots are super, super big, because you also could have just done one giant plot and sat over it during late season and probably had success, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, this is the best format for me, and I think it's the best format for wildlife, if I'm being honest. So this is a plot where this is probably the hardest to access, hardest to get in and out of, but it's a really cool spot. I think actually one of the best ways to hunt this might be to just tuck a redneck ghillie blind into the actual grasses eventually. That might be the best bet. Have a north wind blowing in your face. But if we do have a south wind, you can get in some of these walnut trees that are out in front of me, right here. There's a really cool scrape location. But I think that this is one of those plots where, you have a camera running on it, you have a really good community scrape, and this just allows deer to be on the property, be on the homestead, sustain it, provide more food, allow them to have sustenance here on the property. And maybe this isn't a plot that I'm gonna hunt all the time, but maybe I'm gonna get that picture of that target buck, or maybe we're gonna see that, hey, there's a lot of does that are out here on this plot, maybe we need to target those going in and out of there. This is a tough one to hunt. I'd be lying if I said I'm not excited to try to hunt it just because of the variables that come along with it. But this is gonna be a cool one to see how this one's gonna play out, because this one could be one that's really frustrating in the future. But I also think it's a spot where we can see deer coming onto the property in this location, and I really like that component. So I'm always appreciative of, fresh eyes, talking through perspective. And, this is Aiden Blake's first time on this plot, and we were kind of talking through, what we need to discuss and what is unique about this spot. And, we've been going through some of the old footage and, that raisin hunt that I had last year where, sometimes when it comes down to it, where if that the deer are going to be at certain locations on your farm, there comes a time of the rut, there comes a time of the season where you just need to hunt your best spots. So I think that this, who knows, I look up in the tree and I see that there's a tree arm, from a hunter at one point in time that hunted in this area. Who knows, maybe this is the really good spot. I'm going to spend a ton of time hunting over here, and you're going to have a target that's coming out to this plot really frequently. I do just think that, you're going to come to the point of the season where you could be hunting, you know, those fringe wins, you know, where it's just, hey, the conditions aren't ideal, but this is the spot to be, where you always got to be mindful of those locations where, you know, who knows, this could be one of those spots moving forward where, you know, I'm second guessing the wind on it, but I just need to get out there and see how it plays out, because you can have an idea of this stuff, but until you actually spend time in the tree, you know, you never know how it's really going to play itself out. This is actually my favorite blend here. I really like the no huddle. I've had really good success with it. This is actually the same blend that I killed that buck Sneezy on last year, where we had a failed plot and we came in and rescued it and reshaped it using this blend. And you know, each hunting season's a little bit different for weather conditions, so it depends on, you know, how cool of temps you're gonna have. But the idea is that, you know, I want this to be more of an early season, and then once we get to late season, I want to push the deer to the other side of the farm. I want to push them out to my row crop, push them out to those rut greens that we just got done planting. So if we can bring them to the center of the farm, that's the whole idea behind this, putting the blend in this location. Second plot of the night, we are done with this one. It's a wrap. I just got to thinking that I was walking through there, and you know, this one's a little weedier than the other ones that we've been at. And you know, I got to thinking back that there was a reason why I didn't actually originally disc up this plot like I did the other ones. And that was because I actually came down the edge of this timber and there were turkey poults that were out here in this plot, and I just decided I'm just going to back out, allow them to have it. And then what I did is I actually just broadcast directly into those standing grasses. So essentially this was just sprayed off. You know, maybe I'll refer to this as the turkey plot moving forward, because I do think that during turkey season, this is probably one of those that you can set up on and you can probably have a really good morning hunt. Lots of good roosting spots. Maybe this will be the turkey plot. Here we are. This is one of the original spots where I brought Rye when him and I walked the farm for the first time together. I still believe that this is probably one of the best stand locations. There's a white oak that's right in the timber right here, where it's set up in a way where this is a natural pinch point, where you have a ditch system that's running down to the north. You have an oak that's positioned ideally, and to just enhance the spot a little bit more is that, you know, this is only like 1/10 of an acre plot, really small. I'm gonna put rut greens at this spot. I do think I'm gonna spend a decent amount of time rut hunting. This is what I'm gonna almost deem like a rut funnel type set. And I wanna make sure that I'm picking my food source for that time of the year. So if I can get a little bit of bulb action coming up here, where I think that that's gonna really help me coming into this first year when I'm figuring out this property. I think if you play the wind right, you know, this is a spot where you could hunt multiple south and north winds potentially in what time of the year it is, where, you know, you're always going to give something up. But I do think a south wind in this location, you can blow it away from the plot, right to the tree, suck it down the ditch. And even on thermal type mornings, you know, this is a spot that you're going to want to be, because I feel like if you do sit here on a morning, thermals rising, sun coming up, peeking through, chilly, this is one of those things that I think you could be in for a show on a morning like that. Another small skinny plot. This is on a completely different section of the farm. We're all the way on the south side now. And you know, this is an area where I don't know how much time I'll spend hunting this one, because I think that when the crops are still in, this is gonna be one of those that's gonna be hard to access to. But I also feel like the big setup for this one is that you do have early season bedding. And what I mean by that is that you see these little draws down here. So we're right on the edge of like the big timber where there's a ditch system down in here. where this is just stereotypical early season, you know, late summer bedding, where they're right on the edges of these areas, where if I have a green source right here, where I think that this sets up, where this is just one of those spots where I've had experience where you run a camera and you have a mature buck that's just hitting this plot day after day after day, and then early season patterning where you can come in here early and get a chance at them. The big thing with this plot is that when the row crop is in, like I'm saying, I think it could be hard to get in and out of. You know, getting in's one thing, it's just a matter of how do we get across, you know, the bean field. I know I can make that better in the future. You know, that's something I'm really going to incorporate into my plan moving forward on this property. But right now, year one, I wanted to, you know, not make those drastic changes. You know, see how this year plays out, see how the deer are utilizing the property, and then make those changes. But I have it in the back of my head that I'm gonna have to change how I'm accessing this area of the farm, even just for summer maintenance. But there's a really cool tree stand location, really nice shingle oak right here with all kinds of different branches and stuff on it. Lots and lots of trimming to be done on that one, but it's gonna be a cool spot. And I think once you get up there a little ways, you're gonna be able to see parts of the farm that you can't from anywhere else on the property. Fourth plot? Yeah, fourth plot in the books. Another small plot. I really like how this sets up, northerly wind. I went ahead and put no huddle. You know, I said that before, this is my favorite blend. And I just feel like the best time to hunt this shingle oak that's right here is gonna be early on in the season. And I think that this is a spot that you're gonna notice a theme about how I'm setting up these blends, where I wanna drive the deer to a certain area of the farm during late season. And that's why I'm putting the rut greens in those locations where during late season, during November, I want them to be on that side of the farm because it's centralized on the property. So I'm trying to select my blends and trying to push them over there. I don't know if it's gonna work or not, but that's the idea behind it. And we're out here putting some sweat equity into it. Lots of sweat equity, and having fun doing it, right? Fun? A little bit, all right. We are just making our way into the burn plot, and you know, we spent quite a bit of time over here the other day, so I mean, you guys kind of know the general layout. I really like how this is coming together. I elected to leave the clover because I was so happy with how it looked. And just a quick recap, I did put Monster Buck's multi-year and off-season blend into this plot because I wasn't sure, you know, what it was going to look like this first year. I'm very pleased with how this is coming together, but I think that if I can, you know, direct some more attention to the south side of this plot, because I think that that's where I'm going to spend most of my time hunting on this plot, I wanted to create a little bit different food source on that side. So I tilled up one section where there were some trees and stuff coming up from locust pods and some root suckers. And what I mean by root suckers is that locust trees are notorious for that if you don't get that entire root system out of there. I had pulled those out with a skid loader, but essentially new saplings are trying to come off of those roots. So I tilled up that section. This is gonna be no huddle. We're gonna get this one seated in the ground and we're gonna get out of here. It does look like those storms have parted their ways around us, so maybe we have a little bit of time, but you know, I would love to make it home tonight to be able to have dinner with maybe a little bit of daylight, so that'd be a really good goal to have. So we're gonna see if we can't get this one done really quick. There's just like a bigger shingle oak where I could just like blow it right over the pond too. I think one of the things that we're gonna find out, and the only way we're gonna really know is until we hunt it, that this might be a spot where like you almost have to have like a sustained wind, because I think if you get like calm, it's probably gonna try to like rotate, you know, back into the plot. So especially if you're hunting down in here, you know, if you get northerly winds, it's probably gonna try to actually come back into the plot. So we might figure that out, because you might end up migrating like somewhere over here, you know, a smaller diameter tree or something like that. But this is a sweet spot. Well, it's 7:30 now, and we're about to call this a wrap. We were fortunate that those storms kind of split and went around us, and fun night down at the homestead. I was telling the guys, like, we just had a brief moment where we saw like a barred owl. I'm a sucker for stuff like that, you know, being out in nature, being able to soak that stuff in, where when you can have those encounters with wildlife, where I feel like right now we're benefiting wildlife, or providing them food during times of the year they're not going to have it. So I feel like it kind of plays into, solidifying that, where we're continuing to enhance these acres. I know it's a, almost overused thing, but leaving something better than you found it, that's something that's really special to me. And, I feel like we're in good footing for that. Every time I'm down here, I try to make an impact, and it's going well. Things are looking good. There's also stuff that I wish was farther ahead. I wish the pond that we're standing at right now looked better than what it does. Every time I drive by some of these dang locust trees, I get so frustrated. I know so much work with the chainsaws in front of me, but every little bit helps, when it comes to wildlife, when it comes to natural resources. So sometimes you got to take a step back, and I think that that's one of my hardest challenges that I deal with as a landowner, is that I want things to happen like rapidly. I want it to happen quickly. I want to make an impact, and have it happen in a short turnaround. But really, when you're talking about land management stuff, 3-5 years, I mean, that's just a blink of an eye when it comes to tree growth, when it comes to native grasses. So every little bit counts. Tonight we made a difference, had some fun down here, put some sweat equity into it. I need some water. Maybe we can get some ice cream on the way home. Maybe that's a decent thing to reward these guys. I have fun coming down here with these two and showing off something that's special to me. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. And I imagine we'll be back here relatively soon for the chase side, but then hopefully, just in a few months, we'll be tucked into one of these walnut trees down the ridge just a little ways, and be soaking in what the homestead has to offer.